folks, Nathan Pierce here from Family Protection Ministries, bringing you a legislative update. Here towards the end of the session, we usually see a lot of activity when it comes to legislation, things that legislators haven't been able to get through so far, and now that they're not dealing with the budget, they have time to work on their other projects. Right now there's a number of things moving forward, trying to get bills amended as well as hearing dates set, and as you can imagine, there's just a lot of different topics they're wanting to cover, including things related to COVID, some education things that would maybe impact us, and we are just asking for your prayers as we go through all the legislation that's being amended over the next few days and weeks. And I want to specifically point out to you, there have been a number of bills that are in the midst of being gutted and amended, or are looking at being gutted amended in the near future, next few days. So I wanted to mention what that means. So at the beginning of the legislative year, or the legislative session, our session is a 2-year session here in California, we see bills that are introduced, a new idea put into a piece of legislation and introduced as a bill. Now, that bill may go through the entire legislative process, maybe have some minor tweaks, amendments, as it goes through different committee hearings, and then get passed by the floor of the Assembly and Senate, and eventually get to the governor's desk and be signed into law. But sometimes there are amendments to a bill that are bigger than just minor tweaks to an idea. Sometimes you see a bill go through the legislative cycle, and sometimes it goes through the most of the whole cycle, or a good portion of it at least, and then sort of take a pause, and then perhaps that bill gets stalled because of whatever reason. The legislator that's carrying that bill might change his mind about it. Maybe it just becomes lower on the priority list, or perhaps there's just no way to move forward with it the way the author wants to, so because of opposition, so they use that bill number for something else, because too late in the year they can't introduce new bills, so they take a bill that they have and do what we call a gut and amend. That means take everything out that was in there before and put in something completely new, a new idea, a new concept for a piece of legislation, taking the place of what was there before. It's gutting out everything that was there, putting in something completely new, and changing subjects. Sometimes they're similar subjects to what they were before, but oftentimes it can be something that's completely different. So we are seeing some of that right now, and as you can imagine, with these new, it's essentially a new bill that's being introduced at this point, but it's not being introduced in the normal process. It's sort of during the end of the session, so it doesn't have the same process to go through before it can go to committees. Normally a bill would have to wait 30 days before being acted upon, but at this point in the session, if a bill's already gone through certain procedures, then at this point they can put something completely different in it, and have that bill not go through as many steps before it goes to the governor's office. So it's particularly difficult to get in on the circle of people able to have an influence on a piece of legislation that's going through like that, typically because it's going through much faster, and also because they typically are working behind the scenes with other people already before it actually gets that language into the bill. So it's something to be praying for us as we go through the legislation now, but also to be out on the alert, to be watching out for action alerts from us, and if you're concerned about other issues besides homeschooling, to be on the alert, looking out for other organizations that might be sending out action alerts, because at this point in the session, there's going to be very limited amount of time to respond to certain things. So be ready to make those phone calls, to perhaps reach out to your legislator's local district office, but also be ready to make phone calls to your legislator's capital office as well as the governor's office. Have those numbers ready to go. Know who your legislators are now, There's a easy way to do that on our website at fpmca.org, and make sure that you are ready to take action when that action is needed. So that's it for today on the ideas of gut and amend process. Specifically, there have been some issues related to the requirements for schools back in session, campus schools, requirements for shots for teachers and administrative staff for campus schools, and there have been some requirements for masks, all in regulation and in orders. In legislation, we'll see probably some things related to some vaccines this week. There have been some drafts put forward relating to language for vaccine requirements in California for both businesses as well as some other some more and some less far-reaching. So just be on the lookout for anything that you might be concerned about, because when things do pop up, as I mentioned, at this point in the legislative cycle, there will be very little time to weigh in on some of these things. So you'll want to be ready to go when it's time. Now, as far as homeschool legislation goes, nothing has changed your ability to homeschool this year. We have seen a number of things that would have impacted homeschoolers in one way or another with regard to things that homeschoolers would have to do to report on, things like that. But nothing has impacted so far the ability of folks to privately homeschool. And we're hoping that that stays true through the end of the session here. They'll be wrapping up soon, so be praying for that as well, and keep your eyes peeled for any updates with alerts from us that would indicate a need for your help. So that's it for today. Thank you so much. So to summarize, just as a postscript here for this legislative update, I wanted to point out some specific deadlines that are coming up in the legislature. We have right now a time in the legislature when the committees are not supposed to be meeting. It is a floor sessions only, except for the rules committees. And we're going to see a deadline come up this Friday, the 3rd of September, which is the last day to amend bills on the floor. And then next weekend, next Friday, the 10th of September, is going to be the deadline for the bills to get passed by the legislature for both houses. So that'll be the last day that the legislature meets for this year, unless there's a special session for whatever reason. But for the regular session, that's when the last day is to pass bills, and when their fall recess begins at the close of the day on the 10th of September. So that's coming up, and then at that point, all the bills in the regular session that will be at the governor, that will be the last of the bills sent to the governor for this year on the 10th for this session, until the legislature starts up again, beginning in the new year. So right now, this is kind of finishing up the session, and as I mentioned, we only have a little bit of time left in the session, so they will be rushing some stuff, and you'll want to be ready for any action that's necessary to be taken on bills that are of interest to you. Particularly as far as we are concerned here at FPM, anything specific to private homeschooling. And I would want you to be ready, knowing who your legislators are, who you will need to be contacting, and how you will be able to do that. So be aware of those deadlines coming up this Friday the 3rd and on the 10th of September. So thanks so much.